Hello everybody and welcome along to a brand new video today where, well, we've had the news of Series 12 coming in January of next year, which is very exciting and very much looking forward to that, but it also gave the opportunity, the prospect, given that Chris Chibnall announced that he's going to be doing Series 13 as well, the opportunity to kind of discuss and look forward to the future and think about when we might be seeing the next series of Doctor Who. So yes, obviously the key thing to note is that we've got Series 12 coming up in just a few weeks, and that's another 10 episode series. We know that much, with episode 1 likely airing on New Year's Day. After that, as I say, we've got 10 full episodes, but then there's also a mysterious special that's been recorded, but that we don't actually quite know when it's going to air, what's going on with it, because it's not set to be part of the series, it's not airing before the series, it's filmed at the end of the filming block. So that poses some intriguing questions of where that's going to fall, and therefore where the next series or two series are going to fall. So as you can see here, I've laid it out. I've gone for, well, we know for absolute certainty that the Series 12 is starting in January of next year, so that's locked off, that's fine. We also know pretty much for sure, given that Chris basically confirmed it in one of his interviews, that there is going to be a special which has already been filmed, we believe, spoiler alert, is featuring Daleks, and that's likely to be airing after Series 12. At the moment it's an unknown exactly when. It seems likely it's going to be around the festive period at the end of next year, which I feel logically is more likely to be New Year's Day than Christmas Day. Personally, I feel like the sort of ship has sailed on Christmas Day Doctor Who, at least for the time being, under Chris Chibnall. So if I was predicting it, and this big Dalek special, I feel like it would most likely fall on New Year's Day 2021, so in just over a year's time from now, which is in some ways quite surprising that an episode has already been filmed that's going to be shown more than a year in advance. It's been pretty rare that that's happened in the recent show history. I certainly remember Twice Upon a Time, they filmed that about 6 months in advance. Before that, I believe probably the longest one I can think of is Night Terrors from Series 6, which I believe was filmed around a year before it was aired, mainly because it was moved from the first half of Series 6 to the second half of Series 6, and that kind of caused that delay. But it's not something that's particularly normal in Doctor Who, so it's quite an intriguing decision to be able to do that. Now, one of the rumours and explanations I've seen recently as to why this might be the case is just down to the fact that, well, I read a tweet from Tom Spilsbury recently, the former editor of Doctor Who magazine, who claimed essentially that when, back in 2017 I think it was, that they announced that Doctor Who would, when it was going to be with Jodie and be with Chris, they announced the companions, they announced it was going to be 10 50-minute episodes. And I believe the idea he claims behind this, having 10 50-minute episodes, was that they could get it out once a year. Have it at a consistent time of the year, have it at autumn. So autumn 18, autumn 19 and autumn 20 would have been series 11 and 12 and 13. That was the logic, that was the idea. They thought, if it's only 10 episodes, I'm sure that's more manageable for them. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So we've kind of got this weird scenario where for all intents and purposes, series 12 was meant to air in the autumn slot, this sort of from September of this year through to kind of October, November, December. That was the time, just like last year, was when it was meant to air. But that didn't happen because production took longer than expected on Series 11, and therefore production took longer on Series 12, and they realised they just weren't going to be able to produce the episodes required for Series 12 in time to be able to air it at the end of this year, which is proved because they finished filming at the end of November, or near the end of November, so yeah, it was clearly impossible to be able to get it out in time. But the point is that that's not what was predicted before. So when they had the initial plan, the whole Chibnall 5-year plan idea, I think, this was not part of it, that Series 12 was going to air in 2020. That just wasn't meant to happen. We were meant to have, yeah, as I say, this series in 2019, and then Series 13 was meant to be in 2020. So it's caused a few problems, really. And I think this is where the kind of special comes into things in regards to this, because obviously the idea has been to film a series and then a special at the end of it, which would air after it. Now that worked for Series 11 because Series 11 aired in the autumn, and then you could stick the special on Christmas or New Year's Day, and it was fine. But with Series 12, because they had to start production later than planned, and it took longer than planned, and so they've had to push Series 12 into 2020, it means that you can't have a special. They didn't plan for the special to be before the series, so they wouldn't have been able to write it with that in mind and be able to do it that way. Instead, they've chosen to write it for the end of the series, but then that means that it doesn't really fit at any festive period before next Christmas. Maybe Easter is a possibility, but it seems unlikely, I would say. And then it does kind of tide over the potential long gap through to 2021 and Series 13 that we're likely to get. So ultimately, it's mainly the slight delay on series production to what was expected is the reason I think why why we've got this rather odd special coming in between a big gap from the end of this series that's already been filmed. Yeah, it's all a little bit weird, but I think that's about the best logical explanation I can provide as to why this has been the case. So now continuing down my list, we look at Series 13, which Chris Chibnall has confirmed he will be writing for. He will be the head writer once again, will be staying on, and I think pretty much confirmed Jodie will be staying as well. That seems pretty much set in stone for Series 13, which I think is very positive news, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that, he progresses in Series 12, and then how that can be carried on through to Series 13 as well. The key thing when we're looking at the sort of dates that it's likely to air, or around that sort of time it's likely to come, I personally feel it's unlikely we're going to get it around this time, or around the early part of 2021. Although it would give them a year between doing it, just given the amount of time it's taken them to put together, first Series 11 and then Series 12, I struggle to see them being able to get Series 13 ready in time for, say, February, March of 2021, given that realistically they're not going to start filming until probably the earliest March or April of next year. And we look at this year, it's taken them 10 months to film it, so you look at if they start filming in April, even that pushes them through to February. It's going to be a bit tight, they need a couple of months post-production, and suddenly you're getting towards April, May time. The sort of early summertime is a terrible time for airing dramas in the UK. It just doesn't tend to work. People aren't watching TV as much because they're going out, it's nice and hot and sunny. It's just not a good time to air a drama, or premiere a drama. So all the sort of logic of that, I think, suggests that we're more likely to get the series held back a little bit and pushed into the autumn 2021 slot, back where Series 11 was, and Series 8 and 9 as well, around that August-September time starting, with probably a special at the end of that as well, which will probably be recorded in the same way, exactly as we had the last two series with 10 episodes and then a special recorded, just they've kind of been rather oddly spread out. So it's not entirely impossible that will change, but if I was going to guess right now, based on the sort of the examples we've got, the evidence we've got, then it seems likely to me that Series 13 will air in August or September 2021. Now we're also expecting, as I said, a special around that. Now for me, I would be very, very surprised if Jodie chose to stay on for more than the classic 3 seasons of a Doctor, because I do think she's a good Doctor, and I have enjoyed her in the role, but she doesn't strike me as the sort of person who's necessarily going to want to stick it out and do it for years and years and years. And so that's why I'm kind of predicting that New Year's Day 2022, or around the festive period at the end of 21, there's likely to be some sort of special, which would most likely be a regeneration special. As we've seen all the last 3 Doctors, they've always had their regeneration story around Christmas time and New Year's Day and that sort of period. So it seems very logical and likely that that's going to be the case come Jodie's time as well for that. And when you look at it, if we get to New Year's Day 2022, that's 4.5 years since she was announced as the Doctor, so it's not like she will have been doing it for a short amount of time, even though it was only 3 series and potentially only 33 episodes. The actual amount of time she'll have been the Doctor will be as long, if not longer, than some of the recent Doctors. So, it would surprise me almost more if she makes it through to the anniversary year, centenary anniversary special, than if she doesn't, just because if, for example, she made it all the way through to November 2023 and doing the 60th anniversary, she'll have been the Doctor for 6 years, essentially, or nearly 6 years since she appeared, 6.5 years since she was announced, and that's unprecedented in New Who, for a start, and it just doesn't strike me as particularly likely for her to be doing, personally. I would also be very surprised if Chris Chibnall sticks on to do Series 14 after that. I always feel like he's a guy who's never looked to be doing it for years and years and years like Moffat did. I don't think Moffat would have done it as long as he did if there was someone who was able to take the reins from him earlier. I think he would have let it go earlier, but he had to stay on because he loved Doctor Who too much to not write it and have it off air. So once they found someone, obviously he was able to step down, but yeah, Chris just doesn't strike me as the sort of guy who's going to do 5, 6, 7 years. He had this mysterious 5-year plan, which was supposedly for 2015 to 2020, and that never happened. Or it did, but very, very delayed, I think is probably the way we'd look at it. So I would also predict it's reasonably likely that New Year's Day 2022 would probably be the final story for Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor and Chris Chibnall as head writer. Now, of course, I've got no inside knowledge on this. It could be completely wrong. I could be making nonsense up. Chris Chibnall stays for the next 10 years. Jodie stays for the next 10 years. Who knows? I don't really know. But this, based on all the evidence we've got so far, seems the most likely scenario. So then that brings us on to the prospect of Series 14, a series likely led by a new Doctor, likely led by a new head writer and showrunner for the programme, which is why I'm estimating there a reasonably long gap. I would say if this came to pass, this sort of template for how it could look, I'd say it's highly unlikely we're going to get a series in 2022 just because of the amount of time it'll take to get the new Doctor, the new head writer, the new production team sort of bedded in and going. There'll be a bit of a lag and a bit of delay on that, so I would see it as much more likely that Series 14 would air in the spring of 2023 come the anniversary year, and it would be quite a nice time to do it. I think making sure to have a proper full series in the anniversary year, I think it would be a real shame, assuming the programme is still carrying on, which seems extremely likely now given some of the stories were a bit negative earlier in the year, but now it looks extremely likely we'll still be going strong by then. I see it only makes good sense to have a series in 2023 rather than 2022 if they can't have both, which I feel is more likely. I would be quite surprised if we don't get an anniversary special for the 60th anniversary. Obviously, we've only had one example of that, and that was the 50th, which is kind of more significant in a way than the 60th, just because it's the half century and everything. But I still feel like it'll be significant enough and warrant the opportunity to have a special episode, maybe do a multi-Doctor story, something along those lines. I think would work quite well for the programme, and so that would be something to look forward to then. And I'd imagine that, assuming the programme is following a similar format by then of 10 episodes potentially, plus a special, I'd imagine the special would be the anniversary special, and maybe that would mean we lose the festive episode altogether, but it's very hard to know when we're looking 4 years down the line from here, really. This is something that fascinates me, as I'm sure you guys can tell. I'm just very intrigued to see the future of the programme, when we're going to be getting series, how long are the waits, who's going to be in them, who's going to be running them. There's just lots of sort of prospects and possibilities to imagine and talk about and think about and try and work out. And so this is the best I can give you guys as a possible rundown of the next few years at the moment, I would say. And so yes, unfortunately it does leave reasonably long gaps between series, where it's roughly 18 months between series at a time, or 15 to 18 months, which to be honest has been the norm for the last few years if we're realistic. Series 9 ended in December 2015, Series 10 started in April 2017, there you go, that's a year and a half, and then Series 10 ended in July 2017, Series 11 started in October 2018, that's near enough 18 months as well, and then we've gone from December, okay, this one isn't quite as long, it's gone from essentially December 2018 to January 2020, that's only 13, 14 months, not quite so bad, but it does kind of lend to the logic that doing a series a year, and like we saw in the RTD era, is just extremely difficult unless you've got really the right people or have a fewer amount of episodes, and I don't think we really want that, do we? I think we'd prefer to have more episodes in a slightly longer wait. Personally, I would, certainly. So I don't think we can kind of expect that to massively change in the near future unless you get some crazy showrunner who's just amazing at doing all that, but I think it's unlikely, personally. So yes, that lays out my little plan for the future. Lots of excitement, lots of positivity. Of course, obviously, we're only a few weeks away from Series 12 now as well, which is really, really exciting. I'd love to hear your guys' predictions as well. Let me know down in the comments below what you think the layout's going to be for the next few years of Doctor Who. Do you think that Jodie's going to stick around for years and she's going to carry on? Do you think they'll be able to get a series a year out, or what's going to happen with this special at the end of Series 12? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about the prospects for the future. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this little video looking into the future of Doctor Who. I'll be back again very soon. We've got lots of brand new Series 12 related videos. Megan Reacts will be back, of course, and just lots to look forward to, hopefully on my channel over the next coming weeks and months as we approach and go through Series 12. But apart from that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Goodbye.